Question 2. Determine if the square root of 21 is rational or irrational and give a reason for your answer. So what I did here is I took all our different choices over here, and what we're going to do is I'm just going to sort these into a list so we can kind of review what is rational versus irrational. So I'm going to start with rational. Our first statement said is the square root of a non-perfect square. That is irrational, which means then if it's rational, it can be a square root, but it has to be a perfect square. And when I say perfect square, an example of a perfect square would be, like, for example, the square root of 9, and the square root of 9 simplifies to just 3. So any number that's a perfect square will simplify to an integer is considered rational. The next one that's rational is a decimal that repeats, or it can be a decimal that terminates. So a decimal that repeats could be like 0.3 repeating like that. Or a decimal that terminates would be like 0.5. That's actually just going to terminate. So rational can be square roots, but the number underneath the radical, it needs to be a perfect square. It can be a decimal that repeats and then terminates. And then by default, everything else is considered irrational. So the first thing we can go ahead and do, we can say it is the square root of a non-perfect square, or we can say it is a decimal that does not repeat or terminate. So in this one right here, it's a square root 21. If 21 is a perfect square, it's considered rational, but because 21 is not a perfect square, we're going to go ahead and say that it's irrational because the square root of a non-perfect square. Green check mark is good. X means stop and make sure you understand why you got it wrong. Let's go on to the question 3. Let's see what we got. Determine if 0.5281768176817681768. So it looks to me like it's original, but when it gets to this, it looks like we have a 1768, a 1768, and a 1768 that repeats. Then over here, it's 17. Well, we would know that the next number would have to be 8. And because we have this repeating of 1768, we can say that it is rational. And the reason it's rational is it's a decimal that repeats. Green check mark, good. Red X isn't bad, but you want to stop and make sure you understand why it's wrong. So hopefully you found that helpful for question 2 and 3.